As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping onto the NBA Finals court, Kurt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way.
Blog Talk Radio.
Tonight we'll go back in time to seasons past, when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats, football history on the Gridiron Greats Publishing and Broadcasting Network. In conjunction with Swick Enterprises, we're live from the Wallingford, Connecticut home of Gridiron Greats magazine. And I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We're now covering 150 years of football history and memorabilia. And you can find us on the web at gridirongreatsmagazine.com. It is at this time I'd like to introduce my co-host. He is a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in pre-World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon. I'd like to welcome Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show.
This intro gave me goosebumps, Captain. I don't know what it is, but everyone... you and just... I can't even do it justice, but... Every once in a while, she just rolls off the tongue, Captain. Yep.
150 years of football history and memorabilia.
Yep,
1869,
exactly. I like
2019. Unbelievable. Where did the time go? Where did the time go?
Well, it's only been about 50 according to the NFL. So, well,
that's true.
Always a pleasure, Captain. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Same here, Joe. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and being my co-host of now a podcast that is entering our 5th year since 2014.
Wow.
Gridiron Greats is over 10 years old since I've taken it over, and continue to publish. And we're still there.
Totally. Well, I don't know if you and I were talking about it, but our viewers will be happy to hear, or our listeners will be happy to hear that our captain, the ambassador of football himself, Mr. Bob Swick, was recently featured in an STD article. A very good read. So congratulations to you, Mr. Swick.
Thank you, Joe. I was interviewed, for those people who haven't seen the article. I was featured in an article on football wrappers in Sports Collectors Digest. I guess it was in last week's issue. And Doug Kodlowski, who I've been interviewed by several times, is a writer for SCD. We ended up spending almost 2 hours of time talking about football wrappers and a bunch of other things in our communication with regards to the article, and it was very interesting, and it brought back a lot of good memories for me. For those, just to fill everybody in on it, I had a very large collection of football wrappers that I started saving when I was a kid back in 1965. And every year I would buy packs, and I would inevitably save at least one wrapper from the pack. And I basically had them in a shoebox up until the 1980s, and then when plastic sheets became much more popular, I got the 2-pocket sheets.
Yeah.
And I started putting them into the 2-pocket sheets and started to put them in a binder, and I was looking at them, so on and so forth. Well, late 80s, as football exploded, obviously more cards and obviously wrappers came into play. They were more available, so on and so forth. It was very rare at shows back in the 70s and 80s to find wrappers or display boxes. So as time went on, I decided to go back pre-65 and try to collect as many wrappers as I could. And I basically reached all I could do and all I wanted to do. And then I decided at a point where I think it's time to let it go and move on, and I did. And I'm very pleased selling them. Yeah. And I know they went to a good home. And but it was kind of a nice trip down memory lane talking about these wrappers and so on and so forth. So I've always said to collectors, thank you. I always said to collectors over the years to save the wrapper, save at least one wrapper, put it with your card set.
Oh yeah.
And even in the explosion 1989 up, a lot of collectors started saying, well, I'm not going to keep up. I'm not going to collect 60 different sets from one year, yada, yada, yada. And I knew a handful of collectors who were trying to get one pack from everything and just keep the pack and the cards just to see what they were like. And, again, to date myself, around that time, the late 80s, early 90s, I worked at a small card shop in the town next to where I live, in Meriden, Connecticut. And he inevitably would have people come in. They would break open packs and just, throw the wrapper out. So I used to garbage pick. I picked wrappers out, and I would save them. And then he would save them for me too, because he knew I collected them. But those wrappers are pretty insignificant today. However, there are a lot of wrappers.
A young mustachioed
a lot of wrappers in the past 20 years that nobody knows anything about. So.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to Doug at STD for landing the whale of our hobby, the captain. A good article. Obviously, you and I have talked at length about, going back to your car, when you were, like I said, a young mustachioed, ambassador of football. I'm a 7-year-old Bob Swick with a, big mustache, I was imagine, walking in, to a convenience store, plucking down his nickel. 65 Phillies, 65 tops. I had one problem with the article. Doug gets a little informal with you. He refers to you as Bob or Swick. I would just prefer if people would refer to you by, as, the captain or the ambassador of football, or, like you and I are very good friends, so I can refer to you as Mr. Ambassador, since we're close. But yeah, just Swick, just a little informal for me. I'd prefer, just the royal moniker, the captain, if it was up to me. So.
Well, I'm honored.
If he's at the national,
and the ambassador.
If he's at the national this year, point him out to me, and I'll go up and correct him. So.
Doug's a good guy. We've gone back several years with a bunch of articles, and I vaguely remember, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm almost positive he used to write for Tough Stuff way back when. And for those again who don't know, I wrote for Sports Collectors Digest roughly from 1990 to 1992. I wrote about oddball football cards, and I wrote about football programs and the like. So, long story short, Doug came on the scene much later than me, but we did reminisce about a few mutual friends that we knew in that Sports Collectors Digest, which is a vastly different publication than it was back in the 80s and early 90s. That's for sure. So, but it was a nice story. It was nice seeing the rappers again and talk about them and the like. Do you have any rappers in your collection? I'm just curious.
I do. I used to want a wrapper. I collected wax and display boxes and wrappers, and I used to have wrappers from. I had a 48 Bowman wrapper. I had a 55. One of the things he mentioned in the article was the 55 Topps All-American. I found a nickel wrapper from that. Once I had a really extensive wrapper collection. Bowman's and the nickel, the 57 Topps nickel wrapper always eluded me. But I really loved it. And then I don't know, like a lot of things, I hit a point probably like 4 years ago where I'm like, okay, this is boring. I'm going to collect something else, and I sold them. I sold my display boxes, which are very hard to ship. And I sold my wrappers. I kept my 52 Bowman large nickel pack wrapper, and I have a 65 Topps wrapper that I kept in honor of in honor of you. But that's about it. I get bored. That's my problem. I get bored. It's my problem at the poker table. It's my problem in our hobby. I'll collect something, and then 5 years later I'll be like, yeah, never mind, and move on.
Well, I don't think that's a question of being bored. I think it's just a question. Many collectors, you reach a point in what you collect that you can't go. You may not be able to go any further. You've lost interest in it. So why keep it if you've lost interest in it? Move on. Take the money you receive from selling it or trading it, and pick up stuff that you like. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. And I know I shocked a lot of people when I told them straight out, I'm not going to collect any more wrappers, and I'm not going to collect any more display boxes. And my display boxes only go back to the late 70s, 80s, and some of the 90s stuff. I never really went that far back with my display boxes because I had a lot of Topps boxes, obviously, because I would buy the whole wax box, and I would keep the box from what I open. But I'm saying to myself, here's another example. I'm going to have a tough time trying to go back to the 60s and 50s collecting any of those boxes.
Yep.
And it just doesn't overly interest me at the same time. In fact, I got my whole display box collection boxed up, ready to be either traded or sold type of thing. So that's another thing I'm going to market down the road. But I understand what you're saying, Joe. I don't think it's a question of being bored. I just think it's a question. You reach a point with certain things that you collect, and it's time to move on. And it's really not unusual collecting anything that people do that. You know what I mean? So in my estimation, the toughest thing that I'll have to disperse of, if I ever sell them or get rid of them, are the actual run of cards that I have. Going back to the 48 Bowman all the way up to the 2015 Tops and everything in between. That's going to be the roughest situation for me to try to get rid of them. Maybe at some point I'll be more. Go ahead.
They're out there, Bob. I mean, I just sold. I made it all the way through my 57 Top set, and I loved it. One of my favorite sets. And last year I said, I'd sold off a couple of the Hall of Famers, and I was basically like, you know what? I'm going to sell this. I sold it last year sometime, and I literally see so many high grade sets come up for sale. They'll come around. If you wait long enough, it'll come around.
Right.
Somebody like me will get bored with my wrapper set. We'll put the set up for auction, and you'll see it. A wave of nostalgia will sweep over you, and you'll take it down. It's just the stuff's out there. That's one thing I've learned about the hobby is it's out there, and that's what makes this so fun. Is you can dart and weave and frolic in and out of collecting things like I do, and then if I decide to recollect it, it'll be there. It'll always be there.
Right.
That's almost another topic. What's more fun, assembling something or buying it intact? I always use the 57 set as the example for that. If you put the 57 set together, you know how hard it is to collect Zeke Bratkowski. You know who Zeke is.
Right.
If you just bought the set entirely, Zeke Bratkowski is another card in the set. I mean, putting the set together, it allows you to get to know it and the nuances and how hard certain cards are and, and sensitivity, et cetera. That's half the fun is climbing the mountain versus having a helicopter drop you off, I guess.
All right. Well, that's very true because, again, it's a lot more fun to me to complete a set, to put a set together from one card than to buy a whole set type of thing. And, over the years, and I can just tell you from my own experiences, I in my actual run, I bought very, very few complete sets. And any complete sets I basically bought were roughly 2007, 2008 up, some of the top sets. Because to me, they were just cheaper to buy them that way than to try to open up 3-4 boxes and still be stuck minus cards, So, but my older sets, they were all piecemeal. They were all one card at a time, and that's it. And again, you're talking about talk about being bored with something. I know I've mentioned this several times, and I've talked to a lot of collectors about this, and they're kind of shocked when I tell them. I've basically started and stopped and sold my 35 Chickles 3 times now. And the furthest I ever was the last time I sold them all, which was a few years back, where I had, I think, 3 high numbers at the time. I had pretty much the whole low number set. But I just said to myself, it didn't do anything for me. It's very difficult to put together. I hate spending a lot of money on a let's say a fair, good common from the high numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to buy any graded cards because I don't, you know how I feel about them. I don't like them. So long story short, I sold it again for the 3rd time, and a couple people were very shocked by it. But I said, don't be. I mean, it's not something I thoroughly enjoy or I got to have, so on and so forth. At the same time, the Mayos always fascinated me but I'm pretty much at a dead end with those because it's tough finding any single cards that I like, and at a reasonable price, let's say, and or something that hasn't been pulled out of a scrapbook, so you get all the glue spots on them.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Speaking of,
so I'm pretty stagnant with that set type of thing.
Yeah. Speaking of, Captain, there is a full intact Mayo set, very low grade, for sale right now. It's on auction. It includes the anonymous Dunlop. And speaking of, you nailed it. They were glued into a scrapbook because they have all got missing paper on the back.
Right.
And at one point, somebody had thumbtacked them to a wall because they all have holes in them. And then at some point, somebody had written on each card what position the person played. So
right.
They're definitely gently used, but at some point, if you're buying a 35-year-old set,
right.
It actually is kind of cool to see them. And the Dunlop in it looks pretty good. It's centered. It's got nice round corners. It's got a hole in it. It's got left back written on it, but it's a good looking Dunlop. I forget who's got it up for auction, but the price is still pretty low. Considering you can get an SGC10 Dunlop for, what would be the price of just a beat up Dunlop? I mean, $7,000, $8,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was just going to say probably $7,000 to $10,000. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So, well, we've just bid up the price of that set now after this is recorded. Because I'm sure there's going to be about 50 people searching for that set right now and saying they want to bid on it type of thing. But
I didn't mention who. But if that auction house, if the auction house that has it listed hears this podcast and would like to advertise on Gridiron Greats, just reach out to Captain.
Right.
So, but
I will contact them on
no,
but that's a good point though. I mean, here you can get an affordable Mayo set. For
entirely.
Basically what you would spend on the Dunlop. You know what I mean?
The Dunlop.
So,
yep.
It's amazing.
I did
really
the same
amazing.
I did the same with my Chickle set. About 4 or 5 years ago, Captain. I mean, I was trying to build it in all PSA 8, and I know that seems odd, but it was just something I wanted to do, and I'd taken down a lot of the, most of the low number cards except for the card number 2, and I forget who that is. I can picture it in my mind. But card number 2 is hard, and then you get into the high-numbered cards, and obviously you've got the Nagurski, which is price-sensitive.
Right.
But if you're not putting the Chickle set together, you don't know who Boltosi is, and you don't know who Bernie Masterson is, a.k.a. John Kerry. Secretary of State John Kerry. But, those two cards, Bull Tosi is the hardest card in the set. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the price, reflects that, and Bernie Masterson, or not Bernie Masterson, but, no, it's not Bernie Masterson. Who is the last card in the set? Who is that? It looks like John Kerry.
Oh,
who is the last card in the Chickle set?
Good grief. My mind is blank.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Boy, ditto. But again, it's understanding a set is just once you dig in and you start buying it, you understand a set. You understand who the hard cards are, and that's the fun of it. I don't know. That's what I love.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's to me, part of the fun of collecting the set, to say the least, with regards to how you're going to collect it, and again, like you're saying, trying to find and or you understand how difficult some of those particular sets are, cards in the set are to find at the same time. So that's another big thing. You're looking. Let's say you're looking for a nag in Bronco Nagurski in low grade condition. In fact, I got a guy right now, a collector who's looking for it, and he said, "Can you help me out with any type of, very low grade Chickles? Low grade Nagurski." So long story short, I said to him, that's kind of a tough card in any type of condition. But I also understand that he's just trying to get, the piece for, the one card for his own collection, and that's it. You know what I mean? He's not overly particular as far as condition is concerned, so on and so forth. So it's the way we collect. I mean, it's how we collect. It's the fun of finding all the different, the different tough cards, so on and so forth. All right,
yeah.
2 is Bo Melendo, and going down to 36, last card in the set, and my mind's a complete blank. Unfortunately, Masterson, number 36.
Bernie Masterson.
Yep.
Thank you. John Kerry, a.k.a. John Kerry. It looks a lot like old Secretary of State John Kerry. So,
yep.
So
and it's interesting.
That set has some pretty.
It's interesting. The 3 high numbers that I had that I ended up selling was Isola, Del Isola. I had the Casca card in lousy condition. And I also had the Sweet Johnston card, and that card was about in G condition. So, but
I love that
my
Sweet
1 to
Johnston
20,
card.
yeah, my 1 to 24 was, they were everywhere. They were from 4, and I had a couple of cards I would grade VGEX, which were fine with me. But then again, I just said I just can't see him putting out that money for those, for poor condition cards, just to say that I have the set type of thing. And I think that's where a lot of people a lot of collectors draw the line at the same time. What are you are you actively collecting anything right now? I'm just curious. I mean,
I am.
You got anything?
My 48 Leaf set I work on every week.
Right.
I'm working on my Chickle set in PSA 7. I'm about halfway there. I've got most of the low numbers. But what I like about my 48 Leaf set is I've written an article for it about Gridiron Greats. It's just one of the most doctored sets, just because of the varying of the dimensions of it. What I look for is fat, untrimmed cards, and if that's a PSA 5 or a PSA 6 or a PSA 7, I'll take it. I recently bought a PSA 8 card because it was beautifully centered and it had fat borders. Most of the PSA 8s you see have been trimmed in some fashion, but I am taking my time and I am buying the card, not the holder. And I'm really enjoying my Leaf set. Didn't I send you a picture over Christmas break? I went through and took pictures of each of my cards just so I had them loaded up. So when I came across a good looking Leaf, I'd be able to compare it with one I had in case I wanted to upgrade it. And when I looked at my photo bucket account, it had this collage of Leafs. And I took a screenshot of it and emailed it to you and a couple other guys, I think. And it was just it looked really cool. It was just this, a screen full of Leafs. But the 48 Leaf, the 35 Chickle, I still have. Let's see, I sold most of my other sets. I have 1980 tops, 84 tops that I'm still collecting. I haven't looked at them in years though, but they're just too nostalgic for me to sell. And I'm working on ticket stubs, and I would love to get a run of programs and or tickets from every college game Red Grange played. I'm probably 60% of the way there.
Wow.
I know that sounds silly. One of these days I'll post that up and just there it is. But yeah, it's what's interesting. I was just thinking about that. Is I've mentioned this before. If I wasn't the co-host, to Bob Swick here on the show, I'd make a great guest. But how often do people reach out to you? How often do people reach out to you for interviews like that? The SCD. I was just curious because you are the ambassador of football. I mean,
I normally get a couple calls during the year from various publications, including local papers, with regards to the collection of football collecting. Also, around Super Bowl time, the two local papers here normally contact me When the Packers are in the Super Bowl, obviously the party's at the house here, and I remember the last Super Bowl of the Packers. We had a bunch of media here, all young newspaper reporters from 3 local papers. It was kind of cute, and I told them, don't be afraid to eat. I know you guys are not making a lot of money. I said, there's good food here. I said, don't be afraid to take some home. So, but anyways, it was, that's
cool.
usually what happens. Usually happens around that time. And as far as collecting is concerned, it's normally once a year or twice a year I get a call from somebody. It normally happens right after the National too, because I'll run into people that I haven't seen in a while, and they'll ask me what I'm collecting. So, that kind of thing. You got to remember too, I have a pretty extensive collection of oddball sets, meaning I have inserts, oddball, food type cards, so on and so forth. And I'm pretty advanced in that. And that's the one area that I always fall back to collecting, because I just enjoy it so much. And I talked to a bunch of people over the years saying I should just have a type collection of this. And I got a lot of one cards from different sets. For example, Fairmont Cheats, I only got one card. 69 the 69 cornflake set, Team Flake set. I only have one card from that. So there's a bunch of those types of sets. But then I got a lot of other sets almost complete, or I'm missing only one or two, like the 64 Topps pennant insert. I only need the Jets pennant, and there's 2 right now on eBay, but I don't like the condition of either one of them, given what they're charging for them. And I'm missing a Raiders 1965 Topps Magic Emblem rub-off to finish that set. And that's a set from my childhood, and a lot of those rub-offs were ones that I had when I was a kid back in 1965. So I would like to put that bed also. But anyways, getting back to what you were saying, what you're asking with regards to, how they contact me or what they contact, about, so on and so forth. That's usually once or twice a year is when they'll contact me, and that's it.
Cool.
So Sports Collectors Digest, I got to say this though, has tried to make a comeback as far as articles that they're running, so on and so forth. So I think that's good for the hobby, because again, that used to be the Bible of for sports collectors, especially when there were 150, 200 pages an issue weekly. But obviously those days are long gone, since they're an every other week, twice a month publication at the same time. Moving over to something we had talked about, we were going to talk about before, and I'll let you lead into it. And I find it fascinating. I've watched it several times. I printed out what you sent me. I've studied it. And, I'll let you start. You fill me in on this one.
During the Super Bowl, the NFL ran a 100-year anniversary commercial that featured, a lot of current and retired football players, and by far the best commercial that was ran during the Super Bowl. And I've watched it probably 35, 40 times. I laughed during it. I tried to, even when it ran, I was naming people, and I was very proud of myself that I guessed, the Franco Harris, immaculate reception. When I saw the ball almost hit the ground, I was like, oh, that's got to be Franco. And, it was fun. But for the NFL, we've discussed, does not do a very good job of embracing its history. At the beginning of Monday Night Football games, there is a montage of videos that play flashing back, and there's a brief black and white of a player running, and there's one of Sammy Baugh, arm cocked back. Other than the 0.5 seconds, by osmosis, they give us, there's just nothing. Most records, when they throw back, they talk about, post Super Bowl era football. The only time they really mention people is when a record is broken or tied. and you hear about, Crazy Legs Elroy Hirsch, or, this is Sammy Baugh's record, 7 touchdowns, in a game. That's the only time you hear it. So for the NFL to put together a commercial like this, even though every single person in it is a modern era football team, I was very proud of them. I love this commercial. There's a lot of buzz around it. I can't wait for how the NFL rolls out the 100-year anniversary, because I would imagine there's a lot of people who had no flipping idea the NFL went back that old, or how it shook down, or who the first president was. Right. To find out Jim Thorpe was involved in it sometime in the 20s, it's pretty fascinating. But the first time I was able to name every player, every person in the commercial is when I did that hunt and search, and sent you the script that came down. So what did you think about it when you saw it on the Super Bowl? Were you able to watch the Super Bowl, or did you have yoga class? Did you have yoga class?
No. Brenda and I watched it. Brenda and I watched it from to the end, and long story short, I again called yet again another game of how it was going to play out. And I did say to a lot of people, unfortunately, I picked the wrong score because I really thought it was going to be a blowout, not a low-scoring game. I really thought it was going to be a shootout, but it wasn't. But long story short, we both watched the commercial at the same time, and we both had a good laugh at it. And I said, "You got to be kidding me! They're actually, doing something in honor of the 100 years." I mean, I thought it was amazing. And again, that I've always said that I really believe the NFL wants people to believe the NFL was formed in 1970, right after the AFL and the NFL merged. So, you get a lot of history 70 up. You get very little history of 1969 to 1921. So long story short, I did enjoy the commercial. I thought I had a good laugh watching it. It was nice to see all those people together. I'm very surprised they were able to get, on the or in the in the commercial itself.
Same room. Yeah.
So I thought that really that added a lot to it at the same time. And I do say to you also, and I do agree with you, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they end up doing for the actual 100th anniversary coming up. And what are they going to actually talk about?
Yeah. We all know Roger Goodell doesn't have the best relationship with a lot of players. So it's interesting to see, I would have been very interested to see who they asked, who said no, and who said yes. Because I know that it was filmed in many different cities. Like, who is it? Odell Beckham filmed his in L.A. A lot of this was filmed in Orlando during the Pro Bowl. So, just weeks before. But they talked about how many takes it took. But there's a lot of people who aren't a fan of the NFL, how they handled concussions, and Roger Goodell. So it is fascinating to see how many good names they got together to do this. There's a lot.
And I'm kind of curious too if they're going to follow this theme for the next few seasons up to the 100th anniversary of highlighting those types of players. Because again, and I don't have to tell you, guys from the 60s and a lot of guys from the 70s and guys that played in different leagues, including the World Football League and the USFL, they're not looked up highly by the NFL in any way, shape, or form. So as far as I'm concerned, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they're going to end up doing and how they're going to present it in the long run. And I'm sure, we'll have a running commentary in Gridiron Greats magazine and offering suggestions that, they really got to look at the true history of the game. Because again, if you did not have the AFL, in my opinion, you did not have the WFL, you would not have the NFL the way you have it today. I don't care what anybody says. And
without a doubt,
especially the American Football League.
Yeah, I just it's good to see them do. I mean, what was I just thinking of? It's just how many of these people didn't get along with Goodell. I would love to, and as this stuff trickles, and as more and more of this trickles out as more people are talking about it, it'll be interesting to hear, what people have to say. It's, but agree. I mean, Bob Costas is in the news right now. He basically said I was fired last year from the Super Bowl. It would have been my, whatever. I think he said like his 40th Super Bowl.
Right.
And he's like, I was fired because I talked about concussions on another show. And the NFL basically said, hey, you went too far. You went too far on that other show talking about concussions. We don't need your help this year. Thank you. So I mean, there's the NFL pushing back on the people who push them, and they've got billions of dollars at stake. So obviously, just interesting. Some of the names in this were pretty interesting. And to see Roger Goodell up there, and just when you think about, there's 30 people in the commercial that are named, and when you think about it, maybe this is filmed in 4 different sites, but just still, there were probably 25 of these players in a room for 2 days destroying things. It's like the girl at the end, Sam Gordon, was saying she was filmed, last. And so when she showed up with Richard Sherman, she's like, the room was destroyed. There was broken glasses. There was cake everywhere. There was, tables crunched in two. So it was pretty interesting to hear the different takes on it. I'm enamored with this commercial, and I've done a lot of little homework on it. But, Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning in it, Dick Butkus in it, Michael Strahan, golf clapping, Drew Brees. The first person to appear is Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell, obviously at the podium. The third person that flashes to is Drew Brees, who obviously isn't very happy with the commissioner for how they handled that that pass interference call. Marshawn Lynch not saying a word like normal, tipping over the cake and fumbling the ball. Mike Singletary's crazy eyes when he takes his glasses off, and you see his eyes are crossed. I've read so many times about quarterbacks looking over the line at Mike Singletary coming up behind the behind the the nose guard, and just those eyes staring at them, and just how crazy his eyes were. And for them to focus on that was really good. Christian McCaffrey was new to it. Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, where Michael Irvin says, I'm open, and Montana says, no can do, cowboy, and then throws an interception, trying to hit Jerry Rice. I wish Jerry Rice would have been a little more prominent in it. I mean, for the greatest receiver of all time, and not even close, second place isn't even half of his accomplishments, would have been nice to see Jerry Rice not intercepted, The 72 Dolphins, everybody's dressed in dark colors, you notice, and then it pans over to the 72 Dolphins. Larry Little, Paul Warfield, and Larry Zonka sitting there wearing their Dolphin colors, which is pretty funny. And obviously staying out of the fray, sipping champagne, just a nod to the undefeated season, which I thought was a nice touch.
And to me, I was very surprised. I was very surprised to see Zonka into something with the NFL after what he went through when he jumped to the WFL and had to come back. And was not pleasant in any way to perform when he came back to the NFL. So that was very interesting to see him there and with Warfield too and Little.
I actually
very
I
interesting.
forgot about that. I'd actually forgot about that. I've been looking at the names and trying to think about the dynamics between them and the NFL. And, I'd forgotten about that one. Barry Sanders looked good, with a good move. Emmitt Smith in it. Peyton Manning stealing the show, throwing a pass and then wincing that his arm hurt. So I couldn't figure out who the guy was, hunched down low, staying low behind tables, who then tackled LaDainian Tomlinson. And I found out it was Ed Reed, who had just been inducted into the Hall of Fame the day before. But Ed Reed looking crazy eyes and stalking LT and then tackling him on a table. Jim Brown there, staying out of the fray.
Right.
Tom Brady handing Baker. Yeah.
Big
Jim Brown.
thing to see Jim Brown and something like that too at the same time, because he's not overly a big fan of the NFL either. So that was very interesting
good point.
to see.
Tom Brady handing Baker Mayfield 5 Super Bowl rings and saying, "Hang on to these." Just kind of a nod from the from the old guard to the new. Terry Bradshaw got a lot of playing time. I mean, as as somebody, he was pump faking and throws it to Larry Fitzgerald. Somebody tips over a table in front of him. Franco Harris, immaculate reception right after, a nod to that. I'm running down this list here because I'm enamored by this. Russell Wilson makes a brief appearance along with Patrick Mahomes. Odell Beckham. 2 officials, Sarah Thomas and Ron Torbett. Torbett, obviously the 6th African American, referee, which I didn't know. Sarah Thomas, the first female referee, and them calling it a reception and a first down was kind of fun. Von Miller, Richard Sherman wrapping it up, with Sam Gordon. And all in all, I've watched that thing probably 30 times, and I enjoy it every time, and I pick up on another nuance every time. I love that commercial. So
it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they're going to end up doing in the future for future commercials and the like, because they pretty much, in my opinion, set the standard with this. This is going to be a tough commercial to top, obviously, and because of it.
Yeah.
Their creative marketing people are probably, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to figure out the next commercial type of thing. I wouldn't doubt it, to say the least. One point, talking. Go ahead.
I thought about that, Captain, because you and I, talked about that, and I think the only way they could top it would be to interweave black and white footage of like Red Grange running down the field, Jim Thorpe standing there and in his Canton Bulldog jersey. The only way they can top this is to just grab some old footage and just and pay someone to weave that in,
Right.
And just and embrace it. The problem is there's a lot of people who don't know who a lot of those old timers are. So if you see Red Grange standing there in an old Bears uniform, there's going to be a lot of people like, well, who the hell was that?
Right.
Who's the Indian looking guy with the C on his chest? I have no idea who that is. So, then it'll be up to social media to put names to faces and why.
Right. And I also want to tie in on Super Bowl Sunday. Obviously, congratulations to the Patriots and Belichick's incredible coaching. But at the same time, that weekend, long overdue, and he's finally in the Hall of Fame, Johnny Robinson. And as we know, AFL guru Todd Tobias spent a lot of time and a lot of effort pushing and leading the way for Johnny to get in. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy that he was able to get elected finally in a long overdue acknowledgement of what a phenomenal career that guy had. And I'm glad he's alive to enjoy it. And it'll be great to see that in August. And again, it's interesting. The induction weekend is the same weekend as the National Sports Collectors Convention. So, there's going to be some people I know leaving the National early, and getting over to Canton from Chicago to get there on Saturday for the ceremony and the game. So I'm somehow hoping out of the blue a couple tickets fall my way. And Brenda and I can get over there from Chicago to see it, but we'll see what happens. I'm not getting my hopes up, but we'll see.
I'm gonna have to meet that Todd. Gonna have to meet that Todd Tobias fellow one of these days. Just there's a joke in our hobby. Yeah, I've met Todd several times, but just somebody. So I don't even know who it was, but somebody a long time ago was like, who's Todd? And they're like, well, you had dinner with him last night. Oh, that was Todd? Oh, I didn't know that. So the phrase, I'm going to have to meet Todd Tobias one of these days has just become a nod to, one of those funnies, So, Todd, congratulations on Johnny Robinson getting in there. In all honesty, I'm humbled. I've never known someone who helped get someone into the Hall of Fame, and your Herculean effort to get someone in is pretty cool, and just being able to get text messages and updates, from someone who's in with the family, when somebody gets the knock on the door is pretty damn cool. It's just how cool is our hobby that we can have one of our own hobby enthusiasts who is involved with a senior Hall of Fame inductee, and the family recognizes that and includes Todd in that day, that special day. That knock on the door comes once in a lifetime, and it is a lifetime of buildup. So it was really cool. I mean, I was on pins and needles. Back when I used to collect the Hall of Fame rookie card set, I was really involved in, the vetting process of, whittling it down and this person and that and who's going to get in and the senior, et cetera. And I used to really pay attention to it. I haven't listened to a Hall of Fame announcement in probably 3 years. As I drifted away from the Hall of Fame rookie card set, I just stopped. And this year, I definitely paid attention. I knew all the dates, I knew the times things were being announced, I knew it all, and it was just because of Todd Tobias's involvement in the whole thing.
Yeah, it was great. I was so happy for Johnny, and I look back. I wrote, I don't know how many letters to the committee for Jerry Kramer over the years until he finally got in. And I don't care what anybody says. I know with Kramer it had to do with instant replay. It had to do with the bias against too many Packers in the Hall of Fame, yada, yada, yada. But you know what? That's bull as far as I'm concerned. Kramer should have been in a long, long time ago. He didn't have to go through what he did. It's the same thing with guys like Johnny Robinson. They shouldn't have to have waited until their age today to finally be acknowledged that they were one of the best football players of their era. And you get into the chronic argument that there's a lot of people, a lot of guys for different time frames and different periods who were the best of that era. You can't say there's one player from this is my opinion, you can't say there's one player that's the greatest football player who ever walked the earth. Because every era is different. I don't care what anybody says. And I'm not going to take anything away from Tom Brady. He's a great quarterback. He's an intelligent quarterback. And you know what? He is one of the best quarterbacks of this time period. But again, I can't say he's the best of all time just because he's got 6 Super Bowl rings. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree.
It'll be interesting.
Would Tom Brady have Would Tom Brady have the success he has back in the 60s smash mouth kind of football where, you got 3 steps or whatever it was, 2 steps after a quarterback threw the ball to continue your movement? I mean, if you think about that now, your head, it's just some of the roughing the passer calls are ridiculous and they're comical to watch. No, you're absolutely right. Would Johnny Unitas have, I just think about some of, there's a famous photo of Len Dawson smoking a cigarette on the sidelines, looking at a playbook. I mean, how good would some of these guys be in the fast-paced, and you can't. You have to compare it by era. It's, Tom Brady, would he be able to take a punch? Would he be able to stand in the pocket knowing that nobody can roll over on him or he's going to get knocked on his butt every single play by Dick Butkus,
Right.
You know,
right.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. It's impossible to say.
Yep.
One thing for certain, though, Bill Belichick's up there. I mean, who knows? In 20 years, it might be the Belichick Trophy, not the Lombardi Trophy.
Right. Oh yeah, I could see that down the road. I really can. But again, I do agree with you. The game of the 1960s is dramatically different than the game of the 2010s. So, it was a much different ball game. It's a different ball game. Everything is so radically different. The equipment is radically different, and so on and so forth. So it's a completely different era. And again, because there's a bias against the American Football League, a lot of these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame. And, they're fortunate they have a person like Todd Tobias backing them to try to get him in.
Yeah.
And he's very successful with Robinson. And like I said to him that day, as I sent him the text, I said, okay, better start working on your next inductee. Who's it going to be? And again,
who's next, Todd?
Todd should really be appointed to that senior committee because he is an expert in the American Football League. I don't care what anybody says. You got a lot of guys there that don't understand and don't know the history of the game, except for the 80s up, on those committees, and that's a problem. That's a real problem. And it's not going to change until you get more specialized people there.
Well, I can say with great certainty, Todd will have one of the tickets to the Hall of Fame, which means I won't be able to, to see him at the National this year, perhaps. Last year, I was getting my picture taken at the PSA booth, and he came up and tackled me. So it was a really good picture of him taking the wind out of me, at that PSA booth. I dig the guy. I got to tip my hat to him. You're right. He knows his football, and anybody else, who's like, well, let me text let me text Tommy Davidson, and see what he thinks. And you're like, what? Oh yeah, no, Lance Allworth and I were hot tubbing the other day, and we were talking about this. Lance Allworth? We were hot tubbing with Lance Allworth? What? Got it. And I'm being facetious, but it's how I imagine it,
Yep.
So,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost
tip of that.
Time. We only got a few more minutes, so we're going to go into our goal line stance and 2-minute warning and wrap up. Far-reaching show tonight as far as what we talked about. A lot of very, very interesting things and where we're going and what we're doing, so on and so forth. Real quick, Gridiron Greats magazine, strong as ever. We've got a couple very big issues planned for our spring and our summer issue, the national issue coming up. A couple surprises here and there. We'll talk about it later. Joe, I'm going to hand off to you quick. It's tough to say. What'd you learn on tonight's show?
All over, Bob. First of all, I have the best seat in the house. Every once in a while I just stop and I listen. I just realize that how special it is to just be able to sit down with the ambassador of football, once a week for an hour and just talk football. It's something I'm definitely humbled by. So, and so it's always fascinating to see somebody reach out to interview you and how it must feel, the interviewee, to be interviewed by someone. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
How about you, Ken?
It's different for me when I do get the call and ask you want to do an interview, so on and so forth. And again, I enjoy it. Me, I want to spread the hobby as much as possible. And to me, wrappers and display boxes have always been overlooked to a certain degree. I think they're much more respected than they were 25, 30 years ago in the hobby, which is good. That's a positive for the hobby, to say the least. Tonight too, looking at that commercial, and I'm sure later tonight when I re-listen to this program, I'll probably be watching the commercial at the same time to see what else I can find. I have to say, I did not watch it as many times as you watched it, so that's a big difference. So I gotta get caught up
with the
with
commercial and read the play-by-play that I sent you that explained what each one was. I love the commentary, the guy who broke it down too.
Yeah. I got it right in front of me. That's what I was referring. Read it several times. And It's fascinating to me. But again, I'm focusing more on the older players than the newer players. And I just found, like I said, I found it fascinating. Zonka was in it, Brown, and the like. But it was a good laugh. I enjoyed watching it at the Super Bowl. I will go on record. I did not like, and not to bother anybody, but I really disliked the halftime show this year. It was lousy, to say the least. And I suggest for the 100th anniversary Super Bowl halftime show should be marching bands playing good football music. That's my honest opinion.
Oh, you didn't like the halftime show. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Neither did I.
Yeah. I mean, they should go back to 3-4 marching bands, a couple of high schools, a couple of local colleges, and let them play. Let's have the real glamour of the game again, and really see something different than that. That was just, we both walked away from it, type of thing while watching. And then when the kickoff came back on, and we were all set. Now, we're down to 30 seconds. Joe, thanks for being on. And again, anybody interested in, if you're not a subscriber, GridironGreatsMagazine.com, all the information there, sample issues available, so on and so forth. And we'll be back pretty quickly with another show. And we're going to have a very interesting special guest coming on that. Joe, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure,
Kate. And I'd like to thank all our listeners. Thanks for tuning in and listening to our podcast, Gridiron Greats, History of Memorabilia, on the Gridiron Greats Podcasting and Broadcasting Network. Good night.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.